Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
वासुदेवाय
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय
Narayanam Namaskritya
नारायणं नमस्कृत्य
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
अत्र सरस्वती व्यासं
Tatojayam Udirayed
अधोजयम् उदीरयेत्
Shinvatam Swakatah Krishna
श्रीमतां शकता कृष्णा
Punyashravana Kirtana
पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना
Hridyantasto hi abhadrani
विद्यमथोस्ते हि भद्राणि
Vidhunoti Sahritsatam
विधूनोति सुकृत्सताम्
Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
भगवते उत्तम श्लोके
Bhaktir Bhavati Nayishtiki
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टकी
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
Devaki Nandanaya Cha
देवकी नंदनाय च
Nandagopakumaraya
नंदगोपकुमाराय
Govindaya Namo Namaha
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः।
Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण।
So we just started second canto last week. So the first chapter is titled "The First Step in God Realization." So this section is a continuation of the first canto 19th chapter, the last chapter, wherein Parikshit Maharaj has posed a few questions, just like Bhagavad Gita between Arjuna and Lord Krishna. Chapters generally sometimes end with questions, and those questions will be answered in the subsequent chapter. So the questions asked by Parikshit Maharaj are: what is the ultimate duty of every person, especially one who is about to die? This is the question. And the second, this is one question. And towards the end of this is, the beginning chapters Parikshit Maharaj asked in the first canto. Towards the end of first canto, he asked a detailed question. So the person who is about to die, what is his duty, right? So as part of the duty, what should he hear, chant, and remember, and what he should not do? So both do's and don'ts. What he should hear, chant, and remember, and what he should not be doing. So that was the question towards the last chapter, last section of the last chapter, in 19th chapter, first canto. So these topics will be discussed up till verse 14 in the second canto, first chapter. First, so just looking at the question, Parikshit Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami, very much happy with the question, because the question is not going to solve only Parikshit Maharaj's problem. It is going to be beneficial to the entire humanity. And the questions asked are also approved by devotees or transcendentalists, because the subject matter is the Supreme Lord. So the questions were praised by Sukadeva Goswami. Then he first answers the second part of the question: what one should not do. What one should not do. Before answering what one should do, Sukadeva Goswami first addresses the second part, which is what one should not do. So in that he discusses the Grihamedi. Grihamedi is a person who is dedicated, is a materialistic person who spends all his time in activities outside of devotion service. So such a person, because he has no focus, no goal, He has newspaper, television, he has everything else to that is a distraction uh, from the goal of life. So many topics. That's why in the news channels we always see breaking news, because that is just to attract the attention of Grahmedis. If there is no breaking news, nobody will have any pay any attention to it. So naturally, to attract the attention of materialistic people, the news channels knows how to attract the mind. So they create some scandals or news stories that will excite the attention, just to take the attention. It doesn't satisfy the heart, but it just makes you interested and stunned sometimes, inquisitive, curious, right? So in this way, they take your attention, and there are so many topics for such a person, because he has no clear focus. Srotavyadini Rajendra Rinam Santi Sahasraha, thousands. Apasyatam Atmatattvam Griheshu Grihamedina. Because if that person forgot Atma Tattva, so he has he has so many topics of for attention. So such a person, what he does, such a materialistic person works very hard during the day, and in the night he spends his time in sleep and sex. These are the only topics of interest for such a person. Nidraya hriyate naktam yavayena chavayava divachartheyara chardheya rajan kutumbha barnenava. Kutumba barnenava means taking care of family. His life is all self-centered. It's all about his own family, children, and relations. I, me, and mine. That's all his circle of influence and circle of focus. Right? So because he doesn't know, he doesn't have a higher goal. He doesn't know that this life is temporary, and everything will be taken away at the time of death. Right? In fact, he has one faith. Why he has to work so hard? It's wasted in working hard. Right? Why he works so hard? There is an implicit faith in the heart that one day someone will, my family will protect me. So that is given. So there is a reason for anything, in this world. So why a materialistic person works very, very hard? That is given in the next verse. He has great faith in fallible soldiers, basically family members. So, and second thing about him is he doesn't see his end coming. Even though he sees that everybody around him are dying, but he thinks that he will stay forever, and he keeps his faith in fallible soldiers, means the relatives and family members, right? Dehapatya kalatradis atmasainyes asatswapi tesham pramatho nidhanam pashyan napina pashyati. He doesn't, pashyan napina pashyati means doesn't see his end coming. So he is unaware of the nearing death, right? And he thinks that his family will save. That is the reason he puts all his energy in trying to work very hard to take care of the family, right? It doesn't mean that you don't work hard, but you work for Krishna. That is the idea, right? As a devotee. So now today's verses we'll read. There are very beautiful verses today. 5th verse onwards. Fifth verse. So far we covered what one should not do. One should not be like a materialistic person who is only focused on his own sense gratification and family, right? And have only faith in fallible soldiers, like family members and relatives, and doesn't see his end coming, right? So that is all Grahamedi life, right? Work home.
Prabhuji, I'm not sharing the screen.
We are seeing the web page only.
Yeah, web page of Zoom.
Really?
Yeah, now we see.
Oh, you see? Okay.
Yes.
Hmm. Okay. So I should have checked. Let's read these verses. So what one should not do is given so far. Now what one should do is going to be given in the next 7-8 verses. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma
तस्मात् भरत सर्वात्मा
Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari
भगवान् ईश्वरो हरि
Srotavya Kirtitavyascha
श्रोतव्या कीर्तितव्यश्च
Tavyas Chetatabhyam.
स्मार्ता स्वचेतताभ्यया
Yeah. Abhayam means freedom. Yeah. Please read the translation.
O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries.
So one should, if one wants to get freed from all miseries, he must hear about and glorify and also remember. Here, first you have to hear. If you hear about Lord, then you remember. You sometimes remember his glories. And when you remember, you can speak, you can glorify, right? So these are all these all come in one sequence. First one should hear and imbibe the teachings and also the pastimes of Lord. And when one hears continuously, at some point, it will fructify in the heart. It transforms our heart, and you start remembering Lord's pastimes, Lord's qualities, how kind he is, how magnanimous he is. So all those qualities will circle in your heart. And when that happens, now you are free to glorify, because whatever you speak will be based on what is in your heart, right? So one who desires freedom from all miseries of material existence, he should do this. There is only one thing he should do. He should hear, remember, and then glorify the personality of Godhead. Who is he? He is the super soul. He is within the heart, and also the controller and controller. Super soul is the controller, and then he is the savior from all miseries, right? Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvara. Sarvatma means one who is present everywhere, right? In everyone, right? Lord is spread everywhere within all the jivas. Bhagavan is the worshipful deity for devotee. Sarvatma is the worshipful form of jnanis. Ishvara is the controller as Paramatma. So Ishvara is the goal for yogis, right? So whether you are a yogi, whether you are a jnani, or whether you are a devotee of Lord, for all categories of people, the path of perfection is that one should hear, one should glorify, and one should remember the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, because it will save one from all sorts of miseries, right? Abhayam, freedom. Smartavya, chata. Where is that? Misery. Do you remember it? Chata, one who desires freedom. Yeah. So he relieves one from all miseries. Yeah. Please read. Continue, Prabhu.
If one desires, therefore, if one desires freedom from this vicious circle, then one must cease to act as a karmi or enjoyer of the results of one's own work, good or bad. One should not do anything, either good or bad, on his own account, but must execute everything on behalf of the Supreme Lord, the ultimate proprietor of everything that be. This process of doing work is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita also, where instruction is given for working on the Lord's account. Therefore, one should first of all hear about the Lord. When one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds, and thus it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord, and by so doing, one will be always in the association of the Lord. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. The Lord is the super soul, Paramatma, present in the heart of all living beings. And thus, by the above hearing and glorifying process, the Lord invites the association of all in his creation.
Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord, and by doing so, one will always be in the association of the Lord. If you hear or if you glorify the Lord, you are with the Lord. It's as good as being with the Lord. So naturally, when one is with the Lord, naturally there is no sort of fear, because there is nothing to fear for one who is always with the Lord. The Lord is the super soul present in the hearts of all living beings, and thus by the above hearing and glorifying process, Lord invites association of all in his creation. So Lord invites, Lord is wanting us all to be back with him. Yeah, please read.
Everyone wants to be free from all kinds of fear, and everyone wants the fullest extent of happiness in life. The perfect process for achieving this, here and now, is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam, such a great authority as Srila Sukadeva Goswami. By hearing about and glorifying the Lord, all a person's activities become molded into spiritual activities, and thus all conception of material miseries become completely vanquished.
The perfect process for achieving this here and now, is recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is uttered by such great authorities. So if you want to become happy right now, this is the path. So people think if I do this, I will be happy in the future, like that. But Bhagavatam is such a thing, you will become happy, you will be satisfied right now. You will be happy right now. It doesn't take you time to be truly satisfied, right? Sometimes we watch a cricket match or a movie, but the happiness that may not be there, because if your team is losing or the movie is not to your taste, you may not be truly happy. And also you go through a lot of anxiety because movies is all going to show only materialistic activities. But Bhagavatam is going to soothe one's heart and bring satisfaction, faith, and devotion in one's life. So it brings happiness right now, right? Yeah. So this is the process described. Now let's see. Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam
Etavan Sankhya Yogabhyam
Swadharma Parinishtaya
Swadharma Parinishtaya
Janmalabha Parapumsham
Janmalabha Parapumsam
Ante Narayana Smriti.
Ante Narayana Smriti.
Yeah. So another very powerful verse. Yeah. Please read.
The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of the life. Antakale cha mameva.
Yeah. Antakale cha mameva Swaran Mukta Kalevar. So Ante Narayana Smriti. Ante Narayana Smriti. Ante means towards the end. Narayana Smriti means remembering the personality of Godhead. You be whatever you are, right? You may have practiced Etavan Sankhya. Sankhya means the path of Sankhya Yoga or Jnana path. Yoga Bhyam means one who practiced yoga, Ashtanga yoga, right? By the process of Yamanima, Asana Pratyahar, Pranayam, Dhyan, Dharan, Samadhi, the 8-limbed process to realize Paramatma within the heart. Or Swadharma Parinishtaya means one who performs Karma Yoga by performing one's duties perfectly. Right? Swadharma. So if you want to perfect your life, right? Janma Labha, Paraha Pumsham. You want to gain the perfection of your human life. What do you have to do? You have to, the real perfection of whatever you did was Ante Narayana Smriti. Means you should remember the personality of Godhead at the end of your life. Right? Whatever you practice, even if you practice yoga but don't remember Narayana at the end of life, then it's a loss. Whether you are a karma yogi, jnana yogi, or dhyana yogi, real perfection is only remembrance of Narayana. There is no other path.
By the speculation of empiric philosophy, which discerns matter from spirit, or by cultivation of mystic powers, which ultimately helps the performer to reach any planet of the universe or beyond the universe, or by discharge of religious duties, one can achieve the highest perfection provided one is able to reach the stage of Narayana Smriti, or constant remembrance of personality of Godhead. This is possible only by association of pure devotee who can give a finishing touch to the transcendental activities of all Gyanis, Yogis, and or Karmis in terms of prescribed duties defined in the scriptures. There are many historical instances of the achievement of spiritual perfection, such as that of the Sanakadi Rishis or the 9 celebrated Yogendras, who attain the perfection only after being situated in the devotional service of the Lord. None of the devotees of the Lord ever deviated from the path of devotional service by taking to other methods as adopted by Gyanis or Yogis. Everyone is anxious to achieve the highest perfection of his particular activity, and it is indicated herein that such perfection of Narayana Smriti for which everyone must endeavor his best. In other words, life should be molded in such a manner that one is able to progressively remember the personality of Godhead in every step of life. Very wonderful.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
So, since last verse, we are discussing what one should do. Before that, we discussed 3 verses, the Grihamedi life, what one should not do, right? So in the last verse, we discussed that one should hear, remember, and glorify the personality of Godhead to achieve the highest perfection. So in this verse, it is mentioned, even if you are a speculator or a karma yogi or dhyana yogi, the only way you can achieve perfection is that you remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead at the end of life. Right? So even though one is trying to perfect his life through Jnana Marga, Yoga Marga, Karma Marga, the finishing touch has to be that he should come in the association with pure devotee. That is when his life gets perfect meaning, right? So he gives the example of 2 people, the Gnani, Yogi, and Karmis. So for this, the Sanakad Rishis, they are perfectly situated in Brahman realization. So they once upon a time they go to Vaikunta, and they are crossing This is all described in third canto. They crossed various gates. At one gate, there were Jai Vijaya, and they would not open the door for the Sanakad rishis because they are not devotees. And there was an argument, and finally, I'll not go into the details. Finally, the Lord himself will come to see Sanakad rishis, Chaturkumaras. So when they see the Lord, there is a sudden transformation in their life. Complete 180-degree transformation. So until then, they are perfectly situated in, in the path of Jnana Yoga. Perfectly situated. They are Sanakad rishis, the highest liberated souls already. But when they see the Lord, first through their nostrils, they smell the makaranda of the tulsi leaf from the lotus feet of the Lord. So the Lord stands there. There is tulsi leaf on the lotus feet of the Lord. From there, a beautiful, nice fragrance will emit that goes into the nostrils of Sanakad rishis, and that creates a Sankshobha. Sankshobha means revolution in the hearts of the Sanakad rishis. Immediately, Sanakad rishis were fully transformed into pure devotees. And in their heart of hearts, they're crying for the Lord immediately because of the transformation. That time, they say a few verses. Many people think that, okay, Sanakad rishis were transformed from jnanis to bhakti yogis. Only that much. But actually, the verses that they speak after they become transformed are very, very touching. I'll show you those verses just to get an idea of. See, this is the verse. When the breeze carrying aroma of the tulsi leaves from the toes of the lotus feet of personality of Godhead entered the nostrils of those sages, they experienced a change both in body and in mind, even though they were attached to the impersonal Brahman understanding. The Lord's beautiful face appeared to them like the inside of a blue lotus, and the Lord's smile appeared to be blossoming jasmine flower. After seeing the face of the Lord, the sages were fully satisfied, and when they wanted to see him further, they looked upon the nails of his lotus feet, which resembled rubies. Thus, they viewed the Lord's transcendental body again and again, and they finally achieved meditation on the Lord's personal feature. So they finally achieved
Your screen.
Prabhu?
We are only seeing the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.1. We are not seeing the other screen. Yeah. Yeah, now we can see.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So verse 45. This is the form of the Lord which is meditated upon by the followers of yoga process, and it is pleasing to the yogis in meditation. It is not imaginary but factual, as proved by the great yogis. The Lord is full in 8 kinds of achievement, opulences, but for others, these achievements are not possible in full perfection. Now, these are the verses I'm talking about. After seeing the actual form of the Lord, Kumara speak like this. Our dear Lord, you are not manifested to rascals, even though you are seated within the heart of everyone. First point. But as far as we are concerned, we see you face to face. And although you are unlimited, the statements we have heard about you from our father Brahma through the years have now been actually realized by your kind appearance. So from Brahma's mouth, they heard about the form of the Lord, but that is only theory. But now they are seeing face to face and are actually realizing your true form. We know that you are the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, who manifests his transcendental form in the uncontaminated mode of pure goodness. This transcendental, eternal form of your personality can be understood only by your mercy through unflinching devotion service by great sages whose hearts have been purified in the devotional way. So Yeah. So who are those people whose hearts are purified? That is given in the next verse. Persons who are very expert and most intelligent in understanding things as they are, engage in hearing the narrations of the auspicious activities and pastimes of the Lord, which are worth chanting and worth hearing. Such persons do not care even for the highest material benediction, namely liberation, to say nothing of other less important benedictions like the material happiness of the heavenly kingdom. Yeah. So now it's even more gets to the next level. Now they are saying we don't want impersonal liberation. Even we are born in hell, that is fine, as long as we are engaged in your service. This is so immediate transformation to a pure devotee. Oh Lord, we pray that you let us be born in any hellish condition of life, just as long as our hearts and minds are always engaged in the service of your lotus feet. Our words are made beautiful by speaking of your activities, just as tulsi leaves are beautified when offered unto your lotus feet, and as long as our ears are always filled with the chanting of your transcendental glories. You see? So that is complete transformations of the heart. So until then, sometimes devotees say liberation is like hellish. They were also hearing all these words, but they were not, they were not sure why devotees are actually so attached to the lotus feet of the Lord. We are liberated, we are so happy. Why all these devotees always aspire to see, to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord and serve the Lord? Why can't they be blissful in Brahmananda? But now when they actually, their hearts melted through the devotional feelings by after seeing the form of the Lord, they are impersonalists, but now transformed into devotees. In the whole history of Puranas, there is no mention of a person who was a devotee, but who later on became a yogi or a jnani or a karma yogi. No. But we always see a jnani becoming a devotee, a yogi becoming a devotee. So this is jnanis becoming a devotee. And there are yogis also who became devotees. In the 11th canto, there is description of Navayogendras. Navayogendras are greatest yogis, but they were also influenced to become devotees. And then karma yogis or karma kandis, they also become devotees. The greatest example is Prachin Barhi. Prachin Barhi was always engaged in various karmakanda activities, right? He was a great king, but always focused on karmakanda activities. So he would always look for opportunities to perform sacrifices, various materialistic sacrifices. Literally the word came, Barhi means kushagras. Kushagras is a very key component of performing various types of vratas and yajnas in the Vedic sacrifices. So and when one sits on the kushagras, he should face east. So east in Sanskrit is called Prachin. So his name is, because wherever he goes, he will only look for kushagras in his kingdom, because he want to make sure there is enough kushagras for all these sacrifices. So his name became Prachin Barhi. But such a Prachin Barhi, when he came in contact with, anyone knows who was transformed? Who is the devotee who transformed? Narada Muni. Yeah, Narada Muni. When he came in touch with Narada Muni, he gives a allegorical story of him only, and then completely changes his goal of life, and in the process he becomes a pure devotee of the Lord. He immediately realizes and becomes a devotee of the Lord. So in this way we see either a karmakandi or a jnani or a yogi all of them have, we see examples of people transforming into devotees, but we don't ever see the other side, or the devotees becoming other, yogis or other things. Yeah. Everyone is anxious to achieve the highest perfection of his particular activity, and it is indicated here that such perfection is Narayana Smriti, for which everyone must endeavor his best. In other words, life should be molded in such a manner that one is able to progressively remember the personality of Godhead in every step of life. Progressively remember the personality of Godhead. So one should continuously increase his remembrance. Means what that is possible when we continuously hear Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, teachings or the pastimes of the Lord. Prayena munayo rajan
प्रायेण मुनयो राजन्
nivritta vidisetata nirgunyasta ramante sma gunanukatane hari.
गुणा
Please read.
O King Parikshit, mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulatory principles and the restrictions take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord.
So who are above the regulative principles and restrictions take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. Yeah. So topmost transcendentalists means devotees. Only the topmost transcendentalists, right? Like Sukadeva Goswami, they really take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. Greatest devotees take pleasure. So that is their true calling or happiness, right? Satatam kirtayantoma yadantascha dridhavrataha, right? Satatam kirtayantoma, always remembering the pastimes of the Lord. That is the nature of the pure devotee. Yeah, please read, Prabhu.
The topmost transcendentalists or the liberated soul realize him by advanced experience of transcendental knowledge, and therefore they take pleasure in the discussion of the transcendental qualities of the Lord's pastime. In the Bhagavad Gita 4.9, the personality of Godhead declares that his appearance and activities are divyam, all divyam, or transcendental. The common man who is under the spell of material energy takes it for granted that the Lord is like one of us, and therefore he refuses to accept the transcendental nature of the Lord's form, name, etc.
The common man doesn't know the glory of the Lord, because Lord Janma Karma Chame Divya, his birth, his pastimes, his activities, his qualities, everything is transcendental. But the Mudas, they don't realize, they think, when Lord comes to the material world, they think he is also like one of them, subjected to material conditions. That is their unfortunate situation. But the greatest devotees know perfectly about the Supreme Lord when he visits this planet. Yeah. So here, can you read this part, bro?
Sure. A real transcendental pleasure is realized in the glorification of transcendental Lord and not in the feeling of being situated in his impersonal feature.
Yeah. Idam Bhagavatam Nama
Idam Bhagavatam
Puranam Brahma Samhitam
Puranam
Brahma Samhitam
Adhitavam Dvaparado
अधीत
Dvaparado
Piturdvaipayanadaham.
पितु
Dvapayanadaham.
So he's describing, only great transcendentalists take pleasure in describing these pastimes. And now he's actually telling about himself, how he got interested in this. And because Sukadeva Goswami, his greatness is that he stayed in the womb of his mother for how many years? Anyone remembers? He was in the mother of Vyasadeva's wife.
16.
But yeah, he 16 or yeah, I think 16 years. Yeah, 16 years. So he stayed in the womb. He was not even interested in coming to the material existence. He doesn't want to come outside. He's so fixed. But even though he is such a liberated person, he has no material interest. It is mentioned that Sukadeva Goswami's renunciation is so much that if you take a sugar candy and put it in his mouth, he doesn't even salivate. Imagine, right? Just thinking about sugar candy itself, most of us salivate. But he's so self-controlled, even if you keep a sugar candy on his tongue, he does not salivate. So that is how much transcendental he is, how much renounced he is. And he was fixed perfectly in Brahma, Brahman realization. Yeah. But for such a person also who is completely liberated, the pastimes of Lord are so enthralling to his heart. When his father Vyasadeva was describing, he would with great attention learn all these. Right? He hears. So that is what is described here. Yeah. At the end, yeah, go ahead, anyone. Can anyone read?
At the end of Dwapar Yuga, I studied this great supplement of Vedic literature named Srimad Bhagavatam, which is equal to all the Vedas from my father, Srila Divyapana Vyasadeva.
Vaipayan Vyasa, yeah. So I studied this great supplement of Vedic literature known as Srimad Bhagavatam, which is summary of all the Vedas, equal to all the Vedas. So he was already self-realized, liberated Paramhamsa, right? Mahabhagavat. But he was also very much attracted to the narrations of the pastimes in Srimad Bhagavatam. So now in this, in the previous verse he mentioned that even only great transcendentalists take great interest in describing and glorifying the pastimes of the Lord. Now he is explaining about himself. Right? He's a liberated person. He knows very well. He actually talks about it in the next verse also. Yeah, please read this.
He cites from the example of his life that he himself was attracted by the transcendental activities of the Lord, and he studied Srimad Bhagavatam from the great father, Sri Daivapana Vyasadeva. Srimad Bhagavatam, or for the matter, any other scientific literature, cannot be studied at home by one's own intellectual capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. So through all these verses, he is actually glorifying the position of bhakti. Whether you are practicing, whether dhyana yoga, jnana yoga, or ashtanga yoga, the perfection is only achieved when you remember the past time, when you remember at the end of your life, Lord Narayana. And now in this verse, in the previous verse, he is explaining that the greatest transcendents take greatest pleasure in reciting the pastimes of the Lord, or the transcendental activities of the Lord. In this verse, he states that he learned, even though he was already liberated, he actually learned this great literature from his father, Sri Dvaipayana Vyasadeva, Srimad Bhagavatam. Parinishthitopi Nairgunya
Parinishtopi
Naigunya
Tama Shloka Leelaya
Uttama Shlokalilaya
Grihita Cheta Rajarshe
Krita Cheta Rajarse
Akhyanam Yad Adhitavan.
Akhyanam Yad Aditavan.
Yeah, please read.
O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses.
Hmm. So, even though I am enlightened already, perfectly in transcendence, he is fully liberated from all material attachments. Right? I described that he doesn't salivate even for sugar on in his mouth. So that was his renunciation. Even such a transcendentalist was very deeply attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. Who is the other Jnani we described in the previous verses, who were also very much transformed by bhakti? Sukadeva Goswami one, and who is the other one? Sanakad Rishis, right? Chaturkumaras. Chaturkumaras were also transformed like this only, right? So for Sanakad Rishis, it is the form of the Lord that they see in Vaikuntha that made them completely transformed. For Sukadeva Goswami, it is the narrations by his father, Vyasdeva, transformed. It's always that one gets in touch with a devotee or the Lord, and it completely changes. Right? So they receive the mercy of the devotee or the Lord, and then completely their course changes. Yeah, please continue, Mataji.
The Prabhuji entire purport
With a
with a poor fund of knowledge, we cannot adjust to the idea of the personality of the absolute truth, and therefore the personal activities of the Lord are deplored by the less intelligent impersonalists. But reasons and arguments together with the transcendental become attracted by the personal activities of the Lord. A person like Sukadeva Goswami cannot be attracted by any mundane activity, but when such a devotee is convinced by a superior method, he is certainly attracted by the transcendental activities of the Lord.
Person like Sukadeva Goswami cannot be attracted by any mundane activity, but when such a devotee is convinced by a superior method, he is certainly attracted by the transcendental activities of the Lord. Right? So even liberated people will be transformed by the transcendental activities of the Lord. Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, we
Yes,
can.
Prabhuji.
I felt it's not. Okay. Tadaham te abhidasyami
Aham te dasyami
mahapaurishiko bhavan
bhavan
yasya shraddha dhatam ashu
Yes.
Shraddhatam
shan mukunde mati sati.
Makunde Mati Sati.
Yeah, please read.
That very Srimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you because you are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna. One who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation.
See, this is the nature of pure devotee. What did he say? You are Mahapaurishiko Bhavam. Everyone knows that Parikshit Maharaj had, garlanded a rishi, and he was cursed to die in 7 days. But Sukadeva Goswami very clear the position of Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj is not an ordinary person. He was saved by the Supreme Lord directly when he was in the womb of his mother. In fact, it is mentioned that when Aswadhama threw Brahmastra he actually threw 6 Brahmastras. 5 Brahmastras to kill 5 Pandavas and 1 to kill the last offspring of the dynasty, which is Parikshit Maharaj in the womb of Uttara. For the 5 Brahmastras, Lord stopped before they even come near the Pandavas. But for Parikshit Maharaj, he entered the womb, Angushta he entered in the form of in the size of a thumb into the womb of Mother Uttara and circled around. When the Brahmastra comes there, it's, he circles around, at which time Parikshit Maharaj was watching from within the womb. Who is here, whirling around? So Paramatma, in the form of Paramatma, he would whirl around in the womb of Uttara and personally protect. That is, he could have stopped, even that Brahmastra also he could have stopped. But at the same time, he wanted to give the darshan to Parikshit Maharaj. Even before he was born, he wanted to give the darshan. So he personally enters the womb of Uttara and whirls around and gives darshan to Parikshit Maharaj and protects him from Brahmastra. So everyone knows that he was very, very dear to Lord Krishna. And all of this is a a temporary manifestation so that this whole Bhagavatam will be spoken. And Parikshit was an instrument in the process. And so he was in the current state. It does not mean anything low about Parikshit Maharaj. And so knowing very well this fact, the Sukadeva Goswami is offering his respects. Right? You are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna. One who gives full attention and respect to hearing. Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation. So in various ways, now he is coming to the subject now. He is glorifying Srimad Bhagavatam. He talked about himself, how he was liberated, but he was attracted to this pastime. Now he's basically focused on the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam. That very Srimad Bhagavatam, which I heard from my father, and even though I was already liberated, I was utterly attracted to those narrations. That very Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm going to recite to you. Yeah, please read.
The spiritual master must be satisfied with the disciple. Only then is knowledge automatically manifest before the student of spiritual science. The process should not, however, be misunderstood to be something like magical feats whereby the spiritual master acts like a magician and injects spiritual knowledge into his disciple as if surcharging him with an electric current. The bona fide spiritual master reasonably explains everything to the disciple.
Yeah. Can you hear me? I lost connection again. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Can you all hear me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Sorry, I lost the connection for a minute. So the process of transmission of knowledge from guru to disciple is given here. It is not, some magical process whereby one is injected the knowledge, but the actual transmission happens by hearing in a submissive spirit and with service attitude. That is the only way. Yeah. The idea is that both the spiritual master and the disciple must be bona fide. In this case, the spiritual master is ready to recite exactly what he has learned from the great father Srila Vyasadeva, and the disciple Parikshit is a great devotee of Lord Krishna. That is the way of transformation. Yeah, please read.
This unflinching faith in Lord Krishna prepares one to become a student of Srimad Bhagavatam, and one who hears Srimad Bhagavatam from a devotee like Sukadeva Goswami is sure to attain salvation at the end, as Maharaja Parikshit did.
Yeah. Eta nirvidyamananam
Nirvidyamanaनाम्
ichatam akuto bhayam
इच्छताम् अकुतो भयम्
yoginam nripanirnitam
Yoginam Nipanirnitam
Hare Namanu Kirtanam.
Hare
हरे
Rama
राम
Kirtanam
Hare. Please read.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yeah,
O
Hare Krishna.
King, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all the material desires, those who are desirous of all the material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge.
Hare Namanu Kirtanam. Chanting, constant chanting of the holy name after the ways of authorities, means as described by or as given by the authorities, is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all. It is the highest process. So because of because of the verses like this, we know whatever we are doing, as we learned in this Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, chanting of the holy name Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare, is the highest method of achieving perfection, right? Including those who are free from all material, for everybody, whether a person is freed from material desires or full of material desires, and also those who are self-satisfied, means already liberated. If you are liberated, full of material desires, or have no material desires, or a karma yogi, jnana yogi, or a karma kandi, right? Anybody you may be, but constant chanting of the holy name is the highest or the best, doubtless and fearless method for achieving the highest success. So how many verses do we hear? So many verses, right? Yeah, please read. Can you read? This process is recommended not only for the successful execution of devotion service, but also even for those who are materially attached. According to Srila Sukadeva Goswami, this way of attaining success is an established fact, concluded not only by him, but also by other previous acharyas. Therefore, there is no need of further evidence. The process is recommended not only for the progressive students in different departments of ideological success, but also for those who are already successful in their achievement as fruity workers, as philosophers, or as devotees of the Lord. For everybody, whoever achieved perfection in their specific path, still the recommended path is constant chanting of the holy name. Right? So in the previous verse, he described, okay, the highest knowledge is to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Now one may think, oh, maybe this is only a saying of Sukadeva Goswami. But now he says, no, it is not only my saying. All the great authorities also say the same thing. What do they say? They say constant chanting is the fearless and doubtless method for achieving success. Large purport. Yeah. Kim pramattasya bahubhi
किं प्रमत्तस्य बाहुभिः
Parokshir hayanairiha
परोक्षैर्हायनायैः
Varam muhurtam viditam
Varam
विदिताम्
Ghatate shreyase yata.
Gate
Shreyasa.
So he established, Antya Narayana Smriti first. One should remember. To remember what one should do, one should hear Srimad Bhagavatam, that is established. And not only hear Srimad Bhagavatam, all the great authorities say that one should chant the holy name, that was also established. Now, okay, the path is clear, but Parikshit Maharaj only has 7 days. Can I achieve perfection in 7 days? Will be a doubt, right? So Sukadeva Goswami is sequentially answering the expected questions from Parikshit Maharaj before even he asked. He asked one question: what is that one should do, one who is about to die? What one should not do and what one should do. First he explained what one should not do. Then he explained about what one should do. So he explained all of this. Now, but the problem is, Parikshit Maharaj understood very well, one should perform devotion service, one should remember Lord at the time of death, one should hear Srimad Bhagavatam, but he has only 7 days. How can he achieve perfection in 7 days? Now he gives the example of Katvang Muni in the next 2 verses. Katvang Muni had only a moment of life, right? So how he achieved perfection is explained. So for achieving perfection in life, you don't need a full lifetime also. You need a moment of full concentrated devotion service. Yeah, please read this.
What is the value of a... Go ahead, Mataji.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. What is the value of prolonged life which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world, or better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest.
So better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest, right? One may spend years, but what is the use if it is not properly utilized, right? Some people may live for 100 years or even more, but if there is no focus on the goal of life, and they haven't heard Srimad Bhagavatam or haven't performed devotion service, haven't chanted the holy name, what is the use? Because at the end they will not remember Ante Narayana Smriti. They will not remember the Lord Narayana. So even if we live one moment, but if it is 100% focused on remembering Lord, that is sufficient to achieve perfection. Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest. Yeah.
In order to encourage the king, who had only 7 remaining days of life, Srila Sukadeva Goswami asserted that there is no use in living hundreds of years without any knowledge of the problems of life. Better to live for a moment with full consciousness of supreme interest to be fulfilled. The supreme interest of life is eternal, with full knowledge and bliss.
Yeah. Better to live one moment of life with full Krishna consciousness. So now he talks about Katvanga Muni. Maharaj Katvanga, sorry. Katvango nama Rajarshir.
Katvango nama Rajasre.
Nyatve ihayusha.
Jnatam ihayusa.
Muhurtat sarvam utsrijya.
Muhurta sarvasya udrishya.
Gatavan abhayam harim.
Gatavan abhayam harim.
Yeah, please read.
Translation. The saintly king Katvanga, after being informed that the duration of his life would be only a moment more, at once freed himself from all material activities and took shelter.
What happened? At once freed from all materialistic activities and took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Shall I
Hare.
continue, Prabhu?
Yes,
Purport?
yes, Prabhuji.
Purport. A fully responsible man should always be conscious of the prime duty of the present human form of life. The activities to meet the immediate necessities of material life are not everything. One should always be alert in his duty for attainment of the best situation in the next life. Human life is meant for preparing ourselves for that prime duty. Maharaja Katwanga is mentioned herein as a saintly king because even within the responsibility of the state management, he was not at all forgetful of the prime duty of life. Such was the case with other Rajasris, saintly kings like Maharaj Yudhishthira and Maharaj Parikshit. They were all exemplary personalities on account of being alert in discharging their prime duty.
So he was very busy king. He actually went to help in the heavenly planet in fighting the Danavas. And towards after winning the war, he asked, "What is the lifetime left?" And they tell you only have a moment. He didn't ask, "Oh, why all my life is already wasted in fighting, and now I have to take care of this and that." He didn't say any of that. He said, "Okay, I have a moment of life. Let me just focus on the Supreme Lord." He knows very well the importance of it. So the lesson is that we should always be conscious. Anytime our life can be taken away. So always be mindful when there is an opportunity to remember Lord, fully utilize that time for that perfection, right? For that process. Yeah. So just like Maharaj Katwanga's life teaches that. And he achieves perfection by, remembering the Supreme Lord, in full concentration for a moment of lifetime, not even 1 week. And he achieves perfection through that. So in this way, before actually speaking Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami prepares the mind of Parikshit Maharaj in all these teachings. Okay, so we'll continue next week. Any questions or comments? Let me take one moment. I'll stop recording.